Hello and welcome to the Pocono Liars Club interview. My name is Michael Ventrella, and we have a special guest today, Neil Clarke. Neil is the editor of Clarke's World magazine. He had a bookstore for a while, and he's won tons of Hugo Awards for his editing and a Lucas Award this year. And a lot of his stories have won, that he's accepted have won lots of awards too. So he's like the guy who knows about editing. Um, I've done 12 anthologies, but it's nowhere in comparison to how much Neil has done and the great names he's had in his book. So hello, Neil.
Hello.
We're going to talk today about artificial intelligence and how that has come about and really stood in the way of many writers. But let's start by just talking about what it is. Neil, can you explain to us how that works? If someone was going to try to write a story using AI, how does that work?
It doesn't.
Well, yeah, true.
Um, so most of these systems have been built by scraping the internet and stealing people's books and basically taking whatever wasn't nailed down. And this is a fairly sophisticated part of computer science that they've done here. It technically falls under the umbrella of artificial intelligence, but they're using it more like a marketing term. So it's not really intelligent. It's not what you would expect to see in a story or movie or TV show. It's to oversimplify. It's sort of like autocomplete on steroids. And I know somebody's going to get mad at me for that, but I don't care. Um, it's based on statistics. It's sort of predicting what the next most appropriate word would be. So when it's writing a story, it's just sort of stringing things together from what it's encountered on the internet.
So if some of these people who have been sending you AI stories, what they would do is they would write like a paragraph, here's what I want my story to be about, and it would just spit it out. How does that work? Is that all?
Well, you go into one of these and prompt. You'd add a prompt, say what you want. Some of them do something as silly as write me a 2,000-word short story on science fiction, and some of the stories we've received actually still have the prompts, so we know they're as basic as that in the extreme. The more you prompt it, the more you get more specifically what you're looking for. The lion's share of what we're seeing, though, isn't coming from what we would consider part of our community. They're coming from outside, people who are looking to make some easy money. And before you chuckle about short fiction being easy money or even reasonable amounts of money, they're largely coming from outside the US. Places where selling a short story to us would actually pay a month's bills. And we know this because we've had some legitimate authors from those regions that have told us as much.
So what people are trying to do now is to get into these magazines by cheating, in a sense, not actually writing the story. Can you tell us about the situation you had? And I have some other questions, but this story is just fascinating to me about how you actually had to shut down
Yeah.
submissions for a while.
So early 2023, we start, seeing really awful stories coming in, like worse than normal. Uh, and so yeah, this is something I should stop and say right now. If you're actually writing and working on your craft and everything, you have nothing to worry about in terms of quality. You're already ahead of it. Um, what the problem is volume. And that's what we ran into in February of 23. The volume picked up very quickly. And by the middle of the month, we were on track to have as many generated stories as we were human written stories. So it was doubling our volume. And we were not prepared for this. So we stopped things, went back and tried to figure out what was going on, looked at the data, tried to figure out where the stories were coming from, if there were any patterns to it. And I tweeted, I think, one sentence. Well, first I had done a blog post warning that it was becoming a problem, and then I tweeted one sentence saying that we were closing submissions temporarily, and that went viral. So I spend the next 2 weeks dealing with reporters and around the world. So I was on Japanese television and NPR and BBC and all the different newspapers reached out to us. But while they're doing that, there's some other people reaching out to me, people who work for the AI companies that don't like what their bosses have done. Uh, I'm hearing from people who've worked in credit card fraud and built spam filters and whole bunches of different related areas, offering some advice on things we could look at to possibly uh, deal with this problem moving along. So we spent a month uh, building a effectively a spam filter. Uh, but we still have to manually review everything. So the spam filter really sort of like having a slow lane for submissions. If it's at all suspicious, it shoves it off into the suspicious folder. And then we deal with those after we've done all the other ones. So the worst that happens to a human who accidentally does something that one of these people would do, uh, you wait a little bit longer. And by a little bit longer, it's probably like 5 days. And normally it's a day or two.
Yeah, you were known for being fast with the
Yeah.
rejections or the acceptance. I do remember talking to you about this last year and all the problems you had with it and the spam filter. So my question is, can you tell just by looking at a story that it's AI? I mean, have you ever been
Generally.
wrong thinking it was an AI and it wasn't?
So I ban anybody I'm certain of. And if I am not certain, I have a separate flag that if part of the spam filter, is my own scoring. So if I'm at all suspicious about something, but I'm not convinced, I'll flag it so the next submission goes through that review until I'm comfortable with the fact that, okay, this looks all right. So someone might come on and off and on and off that if they're really on the edge. Um, they're generally so bad, I'm not worried about publishing them.
Mhm.
But we do another round of closer checking at the end. And I haven't been saying why, what I'm using to detect these things. One of the things that's also in my background is I worked in education for a number of years in technology, and I used to have to do the data forensics on plagiarism cases. So there's little tells that aren't even part of the text of the story themselves that I can use to trace these things back.
I assume, I can't imagine yet that an AI can really give you character development or pacing or anything that, that a human would do. Have you seen anything that just made you go, wow, that's amazing? That an AI could do this, or has it all been pretty crappy?
Wow is usually followed by wow, that's really awful. So one of the things to keep in mind is that since it is working off of statistics and sort of next word prediction, it can't do subtext. It does very flat stories. It sometimes will miss a plot point, like it'll hop over something that would be obvious that needs to be written, but it doesn't know because it doesn't know anything. Um, they like to use the word hallucinate when it gets things wrong, which is just another a marketing term for error. But I was talking to a computer scientist after one of my panels at a convention, and he said it's all hallucination. It doesn't know right from wrong, so it's all uh, nonsense in the end. And that's pretty much what we're seeing. The stories just don't make all that much sense. I mean, they can be like they can have the shape of a story, but they're missing a lot of the things that we would come to expect.
Have you ever read a human submitted story that you thought was AI and then realized it was just really badly written?
Well, there's people that are at the very, very bottom, the rare, but it's not that I would think that they were AI. It's more, uh, you know, maybe they played with it and learned from it. But but I don't think that in general I'm not terribly worried about our review process tossing somebody who's human. Keep in mind that I am doing that last review by myself. We aren't using AI detectors. The first round of them was pretty much abysmal. There was a couple of new ones that have recently developed that are actually pretty reliable. But we haven't crossed the line into implementing that because we want to make sure that um, we're treating everyone fairly on this. And one of the criteria we had for these companies that are doing this is that they can't train off of data that's sent to them for evaluation. And most of them do. So if you're playing with those at home, be aware that the majority of the big name detectors are doing that. They're keeping your work.
So I have heard some authors claim that AI is a good tool that they can use to help trim their story or figure out which direction it should go in. Is by your expression, I'm thinking that's a bad idea. I certainly wouldn't be advising
Yeah.
authors to do
I
that.
mean, flipping a coin's a good way too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like it can't write. So why would you want to work with the worst writer? This is one of those things where I'm sort of fascinated by the people who think, oh, I'll co-write with AI and I'll be so much better. If your partner's bad, how's it going to make you better? Yeah, find another human and write with them. I think you'll get more out of the experience.
Do you think we're ever going to get to the point where it's going to be similar or good enough where you can't tell the difference? A sort of a Turing test for AI stories? I mean, since you deal with science fiction all the time, clearly,
Yeah, yeah.
if we look 100 years in the future, is that going to happen?
So I think large language models are a part of the puzzle, but they are not. They're just a part. Uh, if we get there someday, that would be kind of neat, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I've pretty much said to reporters, I said I will not consider an AI story until the AI decides to write it of its own free will without prompting, and decides I'm the market for it, uh, and it's based on its own experience, not cobbled together bits from all the other stuff. Um, and then I'm not even sure it'd be writing for us. Would it be writing for another AI, or what does that intelligence look like? You know, we've seen all these things in stories before. Why would it mirror human intellect necessarily? But I'm not worried about it happening anytime in the near future. I mean, so I've been reading these steadily for a year and a half now, and they are not much better than they were when we first started seeing them. Despite the claims of the companies, they're not really progressing by leaps and bounds, and they're not moving so fast that we shouldn't be able to regulate them.
At one point, we were talking about this, and you mentioned that one of the reasons you were getting so many from overseas is that there was somehow people were being told this is how you
Mhm.
get in. They were being told that this was a way to get involved and get published in
Yeah.
America. Are there classes or something? Who's
Well,
saying that?
so it wasn't so much publishing advice. It was make money advice. These are side hustle sites.
Okay.
People on TikTok and YouTube that will tell you in one video to submit stories generated by ChatGPT to Clark's World. Scroll past our guidelines right on the screen that say no AI. Um, and then in their next video, it'll be about drop shipping scams that they can do. And they know none of these things are going to work. If for them, it's all about the advertising revenue.
Mm.
And that's how they make their living. Or in some cases, and we saw this particularly with us, we saw them occasionally offer courses. So someone would come back to them and say, you know, Clarksville rejected my stories. I did exactly what you said. It didn't work. I didn't get my money. And they would say, well, I have this $250 course that I reveal all of my little secrets that I didn't put in my main video. And they're not telling them that they've been rejected, doing the same thing, that they've never sold us a story.
Mm.
And these are people, I really feel bad for these people because quite often that kind of money, the $250 or $150 for one of their courses, is a significant sum. So they're really taking advantage of those people. They're as much victims as we are.
Have you seen AI books being self-published on Amazon and places like that? Are people doing that?
Oh, yes, they're definitely doing that. I mean, Amazon even asks now, do is this AI? And the best part is they're not sharing that with the readers. If you look at a page, it doesn't have this is an AI product. They're just tracking to see whether or not it sells.
Okay.
You want the nightmare scenario,
Surprisingly.
since we're talking about science fiction here. The nightmare scenario is they discover this works and they release a Kindle with one button on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, generate.
Yeah. So you don't need to buy a book
So
ever again.
so who needs those pesky publishers or authors? But Amazon, I don't, well, I have issues with Amazon, so we'll go.
Everyone does, yes.
Yeah.
Are there any actual publishing, small publishers that are publishing this stuff, or is it all self-published?
No one's going to admit it at this point. But there are a couple of magazines that have said they'd be open to it. There's been a couple of magazines that did special issues um, where they invited people to co-write with them. Um, but the I find it kind of concerning that people or that publishers would even consider it at this point, since you can't prove ownership of a story you co-wrote or generated. So at that point, how can you sign a contract?
That's an interesting legal question, which I don't know the answer to. Um,
Neither do I, so I won't sign it.
exactly. Boy. So the future, these blogs and these interviews are mostly for new writers to give them
Mhm.
advice. And clearly your advice is stay away from the AI. It's not even good as a training exercise because it's bad
Right.
writing. Am I correct in that matter?
Unless you want to learn what bad writing looks like. But then again, you're better off taking any class, going to a panel at a convention, or any sort of learning. Read a book. I mean, you'll learn more and uh, and be better for it than you will from playing with
I
something
think
that can't write.
people are looking for easy ways to do this, and there really is
Hmm.
no easy way. The more you
Oh,
write,
there's
the
no.
better you get.
Yeah.
And the more you read, the better you get. I'm always surprised when I meet people who want to be writers, and I say, "Well, what do you like to read?" And oh, I don't like to read. It's like, how can you be a writer if you don't like to read? It's like being a musician who doesn't listen to music. You've got to get involved in it. Uh,
Hmm.
as you know, my wife's an artist, and she's all worried about AI with art now because it's the same
Hmm.
sort of thing. Art is being stolen and being posted all over the place, and sometimes you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, no, the artists have been dealing with this even longer than
Oh
us,
yeah.
and in many ways are having a harder time with it because it is. I mean, you're seeing people like Tor has been caught a couple of times using AI art on covers, and uh, so it is becoming more common.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what you're going to find, especially with so many. The other problem I think is because it's so easy to self-publish these days when it
Mhm.
didn't used to be that way. Um, anyone can just throw something together, put a AI cover on it and put it on Amazon, and you don't know if it's any good or not. There's no way to tell. I don't know what the solution to that is, except Amazon obviously doesn't have all they care about is making money. They don't care about, like a bookstore would care,
Mhm.
but Amazon doesn't. Uh,
Read anything before 2022. And, or check and if you happen to get suckered, review it.
That's a good point. Yes.
Yeah.
Putting bad reviews up would help. This is terribly written AI, clearly. Um,
Mhm.
so you haven't seen anything that made you go, this looks like it might be good. We're going in the right direction. You haven't seen any improvement since you started seeing
No,
this.
no.
No, it's just the end of it. Well, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. Unless you have any other advice you want to give to our beginning writers, this I don't want to beat this into the ground, obviously.
No, well, for beginning writers, the stock thing that I tell people to do has nothing to do with AI. It's go read slush for somebody. You learn more doing that than almost anything else. Plus, it's a confidence boost. Everybody has imposter syndrome. They all think they're at the bottom of the pile, and after they read it for a while, they realize, oh, I'm not.
No, I tend to, when I read, I get two different views. I either go, oh my gosh, I will never be this good no matter how good I try. Or alternatively, how did this person get published? I'm so much better than this. There doesn't seem to be any middle ground half the time.
Well, that's why slush is better for that, because but if you're judging yourself based on what's published, you have no idea what's been passed. So it really does help, and it also gives you a sense of what the trends are, what the common mistakes are. And, we all have trouble finding mistakes in our own work, but after it becomes instinctual because you've seen it so many times, your odds go up of
Absolutely. And
catching
just
it.
like
Yeah.
anything, the more you do it, the better you
Hmm.
get at it, whether it's playing an instrument or riding a bicycle or writing. And too many people just look for the easy way out, which is what they're seeing AI as, I think.
Hmm.
Any final comments?
Send us your stories.
There we go. One of the things about too many writers don't get is that if your story is good enough, it doesn't matter if you're brand new, if first time
Hmm.
published. I certainly have published in my anthologies people who have never been published before, and we like that. We like to brag about discovering
Yeah.
something.
It's the
So
gold star on our fridge.
mhm. So yeah, don't be discouraged. Always send it in. All you're gonna get lots of rejection letters. That's how it works. But
Mhm.
the more you do, the better it's gonna get. And one of those stories is just gonna be loved by an editor somewhere, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you for talking to me. I appreciate it.
Oh, anytime.
All
Take
right.
care.
Why don't you tell them where they can find you?
Oh, clarksworldmagazine.com and neil-clarke.com.
There you go. So thank you very much, Neil. See you later.
Take care.
As soon as I can figure out how to turn this off.